Yitzi, what's the story with this?
Yeah, this definitely is very unique.
Pרשת מצורע, Shabbat HaGadol, and this Parsha continues the topics from last week's Parasha of Tuvia and Ta'ara. And last year we discussed why does Tzara'at Habait appear as a big blessing to Am Yisrael. What is that about? We'll link that video at the end of this one. This year, I want to continue talking about Tzara'at Habait because when you look at this greater topic of Tuvia and Ta'ara, it is very, very, very different. Because most usually, in all other cases, Tuvia and Ta'ara come to a person because something happened to that person or something happened to a live animal around that person and the person got affected from that animal or from that being. Now, we do have situations in which an object becomes Tam'e, either because a Tam'e person touches it or some dead being. We have Rishon L'Tumah, Sheni L'Tumah, we have these rules. However, the only place we find where an object becomes inherently Tam'e from itself, because of itself, is by Tzara'at Habait last week and Tzara'at Habayt this week. This is the only place where no one touches it, nothing touches it, and it becomes Tam'e because of something in itself, in its own being. So why is this? What's different about Tzara'at Habait, Tzara'at Habait, that they get their own tum'ah? What is this about Tzarat that affects also the beged and the bite, and not only the person itself?
Yeah, this is definitely very interesting. I mean, in general, the fact that a house can get a disease is in itself a strange concept, right? A person can get a disease, a living being, maybe even a plant, a tree, but an object, it's very, very interesting. And maybe that's what the Torah is trying to teach us. We usually see, okay, there's us, and then there's the physical world around us. There's our belongings, there's our objects. We get very caught up sometimes in those things around us, but at the end of the day, they're one thing, we're another. And maybe that's what the Torah is trying to teach us here. Your responsibility, your influence on the world doesn't stay within your body. Your soul impacts your physical body, as we were discussing in Tzara'at Haguf, but also your being, your physical self also expands beyond that. Just like your soul impacts your body, you impact the things around you. And not only the people around you, even the physical objects around you, even your belongings. Everything in this world is influenced for the good and for the bad by what you do with it. It's up to you to make it and use what you have for something good. And when you don't, it goes the other way. And maybe that's something that the Torah is teaching us here, because it's an interesting word. When we look at Tzara'at Haguf, we'll see, as we mentioned last week, that he's brought to the Kohen, and sometimes it just says that when someone has a certain nega, the Kohen sees it. But both in Tzara'at Habait and in Tzara'at Habayt, we see something else. We see that the person has to show it to the Kohen. And that's interesting because your body may actually be more hidden to the world than your clothes and your house. And still, it's up to you to show your clothes to the Kohen. It's up to you, as the Pasuk says here, Uva asher lo habayit. You have to tell the Kohen, Kenega nir'a li babayit. You have to go and tell the Kohen, listen, I think there's a problem in my house, come see. Because maybe what the Torah is teaching us is that responsibility. That when you see some problem around you, don't say, oh, that's not related to me, that's something else. It's their problem, it's someone else. We see sometimes things happen in the world around us, in our close area, and we say, oh, as long as it didn't happen to me, everything's fine. And the Torah is telling, no, look around you. If you notice something, even if it's not you, even if you could get up and walk away. And it's interesting, the Torah doesn't say that you're Tam'e. If you leave, if you don't stay in that house, you're okay. You could have easily just walked away. But no, it's your responsibility to fix the problem, to notice the problem, and then to fix it. And the Midrash explains this. It says that first, Tzarat will show up in your house. And it's up to you to say, okay, this isn't, there's a problem in the house. It's not relevant to me. But if you don't get it, it comes to your clothes. And if you don't get it, it comes to you. If you're not able to recognize your responsibility, it'll have to end up, meeting you. It's up to you to notice early. Listen, there's something wrong. I have influence on the world around me, not only on myself, not even only on the people around me, even on the things around me. It's up to me to take them to a positive place. And if something's wrong, I'm responsible to notice that. And maybe this answers also the issue of Tuma and Tahara. Because as you said, Tuma is usually related to a living thing, but it's actually not related to a living thing. It's usually related to a dying thing, something that was live and was lost. It can be full death, it can be other types of loss, but it's something related to missed life, to something that was lost, it's something that's missing. And here we have physical objects that they never had any life. But maybe that's what the Torah is saying. If they never had a life, it's because of you. You could have taken your things and turned them into something of value. You could have used your possessions and given them a life and made them impactful and made them just like humans, just like live things can impact their environment. Your objects can impact the environment around you, but it's up to you to do that. You're the one who gives them life. And therefore, when your objects haven't reached their potential, when they're not doing what they should be doing in the world, and the Midrash connects it to someone who doesn't share their belongings with others, doesn't let people have things in their house, and at the end of the story here, he has to take everything he has out into the world so everyone sees what he has. Because if you're not using your things as they're supposed to be, so in a certain sense, that's a lost life for those physical objects. They've lost their potential. It's because of you. It's your responsibility, but it's still some sort of missed life. And maybe that's why we have this concept of the Tumah in these physical, non-living objects.
Very good. I really like what you're saying about the responsibility we have not only for ourselves, but also for our objects, our belongings, to fulfill what they have to be fulfilled. We are responsible for that. You know, there's a very famous expression of Marbeh Nechasim, Marbeh De'aga. The more valuables you have, the more the belongings you have more worries. So obviously it's true on the technical level, but also it's brought down in many of the Sfarim that it means that you have more responsibility to the things in the world that you own, because each thing you own, each thing you do has to help you get to its full potential, to your full potential, in order to bring out the bigger message that you have to bring into the world, the bigger shlichut that we've discussed so many times in this channel that you have to bring in this world. That's what these objects are there for. That's what their goal is for. That's what you have them for, in order to help you. And if you miss that, if you don't use those, if you don't translate owning those things into that mission, into that assignment, into that shlichut, then you're missing out. And that's why you have a lot of da'aga. That's why you have a lot of worries on your mind. Just like the famous machloket about the mitzvahs in Gadol Mitzvah Ve'oseh or Eno Mitzvah Ve'oseh, who's greater? The one who's commanded to do the mitzvahs and is still doing them, or the person who's not commanded in any way does the mitzvahs? And the Gemara concludes that the person who is commanded to do them is greater, even though you would have assumed that the person who does it voluntarily is greater. But no, the person who's commanded to do the mitzvahs is greater because, say the Mefarshim, because he's worried about it, because he's thinking all the time about how can they accomplish these mitzvahs, how can they do more mitzvahs, because that's what's on their mind. That's what the mitzvahs are there for, to make sure that they're helping the person fulfill their potential, fulfill their shlichut, again, like we've discussed so many times. And as opposed to someone who is not Metzorah Metzora'a, who isn't commanded and still does the mitzvah, that's wonderful. It's a very special thing. But obviously, if they're not commanded to do the mitzvah, then the mitzvah is not part of the shlichut, is not part of their assignment in this world, is not part of their mission. So there's no reason for them to do it. Won't necessarily help them get closer to fulfilling their shlichut, because their shlichut is what they were given when they were born. And part of that is the mitzvahs that they have to fulfill. Part of that is the objects, the belongings that you own throughout your life. That's why you have this da'aga. That's why you have this worry on your mind, because you're always constantly thinking, how can I translate my mission using these things? How can I bring my mission to fulfillment using these objects, using these belongings? And like you were saying about the responsibility we have for our belongings, a bite is not only our belongings. And interestingly enough, like you were saying, the Midrash says that when there is Tzara'at Habayt, it doesn't affect the belongings inside the house. You have to take them out of the house. They're not Tam'e at all. Nothing happened to them. It's only the walls of the bite. And it's really what we call the bite. It's the house. And when you think about it, the concept of bite means a few things. First of all, your bite on the technical level is the walls around you. And as we know, a house is a person's kingdom. People always feel the most at home in their house. And that's where they feel where they can be the most themselves. That's where they let themselves be who they want to be and say what they want to say and do what they want to do. However, that's the first message over here, that even inside your house, even inside these walls, you have to be careful of what you say. You have to be careful of the person you are. Again, a famous Gemara that we know from the beginning of Baba Batra, where Holdus and Baba Ben Buta couldn't see anymore. He was blind and he was put in prison. And Holdus comes and sits next to him after he kills all of Chachmei Yisrael, all of the rabbis in that generation. And he tries to get the rabbi Baba Ben Buta to say something bad about the king Holdus. And he disguises as a common person. But Baba Ben Buta doesn't do that, even though he's sitting inside these four walls. And Holdus says to him, it's just me and you. There's nobody else. Nobody's going to hear it. Baba Ben Buta says, no, I'm not going to say anything, because you never know how the word can go out. So the same lesson, the same message, just in a different angle, is what Tzara'at Habayt is. Even in your home, even in your own kingdom, you think you're surrounded by the walls, and you think you're allowed to say whatever you want to say about people, about what's going on. Says the Torah, no. Even within your four walls, you have to watch what you say. You have to watch how you behave. You have to continue being a good human being, a good person, and not think to yourself, oh, now I can do this and that. That's on the technical level. But also, bite, on the more fundamental level, is the smallest responsibility circle a person has. A lot of us like to help other people. Human beings are very social beings. We need other people with us. We live on social network. We live for our community. We live for our friends. But the most smallest circle of responsibility we have is towards our family, is towards our home. Those are the people that look up to us, and we have our influence on them, and we affect them the most. So this is the place where we have to be careful the most. This is the place where we have to watch how we behave, what we do, and try to show how to be good people, how to be good human beings. The exact opposite of what we were saying before. Don't let yourself think that because you're at home, you can do whatever you want. It's the exact opposite. Because you're at home, that's where you have to be even more careful how you behave, even more careful what you're showing, what you're projecting to the small circle of responsibility around you. That's where everything begins. And from that small circle, that's where your influence grows out and grows bigger. And maybe these are the messages from Tzara'at Habayt in this week's Parasha, telling us, like you were saying, the responsibility a person has for themselves, but also for the inner circle, for the smaller circle of their family, to make the greater, bigger society better out of these small circles of the Bait.
You know, what you're saying maybe can explain a question about the Midrash, because we said the Midrash says that first you get Tzarat in the home, and if you don't realize there's a problem, it comes to your clothes, and if you still don't realize, it comes to you. But that's not how it's written in the Torah. We first see you, your physical body, then we see your clothing, then we see the house. But maybe it's exactly teaching us this, because many people want to feel that they're caring for the world around them, that they're responsible for what's around them. So what do? They skip over themselves, over their home, over their people, and they go to what's as far away as possible, because it's easy to care about something that doesn't really involve you directly. I can show how much I care about it. I can show that I'm truly caring about the world around me, but that's not how it works, the Torah says. If you're gonna look for the problems, if you're gonna look for the negaim, if you're gonna be looking for the problems that need to be fixed, start inwards. Start with yourself. Grow from there to your clothing. Grow from there to your home. If you go that way, then you'll be able to slowly influence the world. But if you're constantly jumping to everything beyond yourself and starting there, you're never going to fix anything. True tikkun olam, tikkun of the world, doesn't start in the world. It starts with you, but not getting stuck only with you. Also recognizing the influence you have around you. And that balance is exactly what we have here. Yes, you need to notice what's around you. You need to notice that you have impact on everything around you. As we said, even those physical objects around you that you own, you have impact on them. But when it comes to where do I start searching for what needs to be fixed, you have to start inwards in the smallest circle possible and grow out from there. And that's how you can really change the world to the better.
Beautiful and so true, and also so needed, especially again, like we say many times in our generation, with the virtue signaling that goes on social media, where people are social in order to show how good they are towards the world, where many times they miss the first few steps that they have to be taking, especially like you were saying, with the more inner circles which need their help. There is much more to talk about it, but we'll have to end here because we're out of time. Again, we'll just remind our viewers what we talked last year. Last year, we discussed the topic of Tzara'at Habait. Why is it a blessing? What's so special about Tzara'at Habait? We'll link that video very soon. And as usual, if you like this video, please feel free to like it on YouTube, comment below, and of course, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. Help us grow this channel and spread the Torah out. Shkoyach Yitzi.
Shkoyach Tuvia, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Next week, Pesach, Emetz Hashem. We'll talk then. For more Talking Torah videos on different topics, check out our YouTube channel.